This is Christine with Trusty Training Services and 5-year-old Sunday on her first day of puppy boot camp. She is here to learn impulse control, lead training, and how to be more neutral around other dogs. We are going to begin with the cornerstone exercise, patience training in the crate. She's not done this before with me, so this is her first rep. It's a brand new exercise, so she's not going to know what I mean by what I'm doing necessarily. But I'm going to give her the weight posture, and then I'm only going to proceed as slowly as she can maintain her level of calm. She has to be at least sitting or lying down for me to proceed with the exercise. And as long as she's fidgeting, I'm not going to continue. So basically, when she fidgets, I freeze, and when she calms down, then I slowly move forward. We have a couple goals on this exercise. One is to teach the dog that an open door is not an automatic invitation, and that's then going to transfer into door etiquette and other important exercises. The other goal is to teach the dog handler focus, and the primary goal, the character goal, is to teach the dog to say no to herself. Once she gets good at saying no to herself, then I can say yes to her much more often. So I'm going to wait for her eyes here. I'm hoping she'll look at me. Some dogs won't on the first time. So at the very least, she has to be looking away from the door. Now I'm slowly going to start to open the door. And I'm watching for any lead-ups to coming out. There's a lead-up right there. She's looking at the door. It means she's thinking about the door. So I'm not going to proceed until she either looks away from the door or looks up at me. Every time she looks at the door or shows a lead-up to coming out, I will pause. When she shows self-control, I'll proceed. I'll move the door slowly so that she has time to think about the choices that she's making. There's a clear lead up to coming out. There she's going to hear a no marker, which she will learn to associate with no, that will not be rewarded. No, that will not get you what you want. Now we'll wait for her to show self-control and calm. And we also want her focus either on the handler or away from the door before we proceed to open it. This is where we begin to build a very important connection in the dog's brain between focusing on the handler and getting what they want instead of focusing on the thing that they want. If her eyes are on the door, her mind is on the door, so we want to wait her out until she either looks at me or looks away from the door. It's also important that the feedback she receives comes within 3 seconds of the choice that she makes. So I'm probably going to work a tighter timeline than that because of my experience, but the rule of 3 is woven throughout dog training. In this case, it's the 3-second rule. I'm also going to take plenty of deep breaths to keep myself from building any tension. There, she made a good choice of putting her shoulders back instead of trying to come forward. Once the door is all the way open, I'm going to put a collar on her. She's going to learn right from the beginning that she's not to come out until she's invited. She's to wait till the collar and the leash are on. And it's very common that once you put a leash or a collar on in the beginning stages of this exercise, the dog mistakes that for the invitation. And we're going to teach her that that is not the invitation. There I have her eyes, so I'll proceed with opening the door again. I'm going to maintain tall posture, which we call wait posture, because it's important that I build a contrast between when I want her to wait and when I want her to come forward. So I don't want to confuse her, and so I'm going to create a very clear contrast between when I'm inviting her and when I'm not. What I'm waiting for is for her to actually sit herself back away from the door. Right now, she's not really made a clear decision of whether she's going to stay or whether she's going to try to come out. That's better. So I'm going to invite her out in a moment. And what I'm looking for is for her to come out and to stop and sit in front of me without any help from the leash. So I will use body language to communicate what I want, and then I will leave the choice up to her. And the only choice that will work to keep her from going back in the crate is the choice that I want her to make. So she chose to pass me, which is not the choice that I wanted her to make. So I gave her another no marker, and we're putting her back in so that she understands that there is a clear connection between the choices she makes and the results she receives, which is the beginning of her understanding how to learn. So this exercise is way more than behavior related. It is retraining the dog's brain to think differently, helping them understand that every choice they make produces a result that they receive, and that they actually have complete control over what happens to them. Waiting for her to look at me or to look away from the door. We'll see what she decides to do. Taking deep breaths to remain relaxed myself. I don't really like that her nose, there we go. Don't like that her nose is hanging out the door. I don't really want any part of her hanging out the door. I will stand tall until the very moment I'm ready to invite. And when I invite, I will drop my shoulders, reach toward her with my hands in a welcoming invitation. And then I'm going to stop and pop back up into the wait posture as soon as she exits. And there, on only her second try, she was able to achieve the result we were looking for. Now we have the action that we want. Now we have to wait to see if we can get the attitude that we're looking for. So I want to make sure I test her calm before we move forward with anything else. So I'm looking at her whole body. I'm looking at her eyes. I want her eyes to be soft. I don't want a hard stare from the dog, so she's starting to soften her eyes to me nicely. I'm keeping my shoulders tall because one of her behaviors is jumping. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything, especially in the early stages of training, that would encourage her to make a mistake and that would lead to a need for correction. So I'm going to stay nice and tall. She's nice and calm. And I'm going to go ahead and give her a nose touch release. And that means that she is all done with the exercise. And in this case, it means that she can move around within the space of the leash. She doesn't have full freedom yet, but right now we're going to teach her that the way that she can get out of the crate and stay out of the crate is by exercising self-control and following the direction of the handler. This is Christine with Trustee Training Services, training built on trust. Happy training.